everyone. Now that we have started with a video series on tenses, let me start with the actual tenses now. In my last video, I introduced the concept of tenses and I had given you an overview of the different types of tenses. We have 12 different types of tenses. Now I'm going to start with each tense and I'm going to tell you about how to use, when to use, and what mistakes not to make when you use those tenses. So let's start today with simple present tense. Now at the onset, let's first look at how to form present simple tense. The first thing that you put in a sentence is a subject. After the subject, you put verb in its V1 form. Now this verb depends on the singularity or plurality of the subject. If the subject is singular, then you add an S or ES to the first form of the verb. Otherwise, you keep it like that. The format is very simple, but the format will change a little bit as per the subjects, as per the negative formation of the sentence or an interrogative formation of a sentence. Now let's look at all the three categories one by one along with an example. To start off with, let me tell you about the subjects first. We have a list of these subjects. Now these are divided into two categories. Some are plural and some are singular. Like, look at these ones: I, you, we and they. Whenever we take these pronouns, this category is always plural category. And the rule says that if the subject is plural, the verb will also be in the plural form. Plural form in the sense that it will only be in the V1 form, nothing attached to it. Let's take an example of the verb. Let's say sing. Okay, so if I use the verb sing here, how will I make a sentence in present simple now? I sing, you sing, we sing and they sing. Very simple. But when the subject becomes singular, like these pronouns, he, she, it, or anybody's name, like let's say Ravi or Meera or Raman, etc. So when you talk about these pronouns, they are taken as singular forms. And the rule says that if you have singular subjects, you will have singular verb, which means that verb will have an S or ES depending on the spelling of the verb. So it's very easy to connect the subject and the verb. Subject singular, verb with S. Subject plural, verb without S. No change at all. Now we have taken one example here, sing. Let's see how does it change when you change the subject to singular. He, now sing is the main verb, and to that main verb we have to add S. So it will become sings. Now I can make a sentence like this: he sings, she sings, it sings. In noun I can take anybody's name like Meera sings, Ravi sings, Raman sings, etc. So this golden rule you must not forget, because simple present tense is all based on subject and verb agreement. By agreement I mean that the verb will change as per the subject. Now let's see how to form the negative simple present tense. When we talk about negative and when we were doing auxiliary verbs also, that time I had mentioned that the verb do and its various forms like do or does are taken in present tense. So when we are making negative forms, we will obviously use the verbs do and don't, or do not and don't. And we'll also take the verbs like does not or doesn't. Now don't and doesn't are the contracted forms of do not and does not. Now how will you judge when to use do not and when to use does not? Very simple. It again takes the singular and plural concept of subject. Look here. For plural subjects, we will use do not or don't. No s added to it. Remember this. And for singular subjects, we will use does not or doesn't. Now if you look here, es is added to it, and if you look at this, no es is added. Let's make a sentence along with the example. Sing. Okay, now let's see. I don't or do not sing. Now the same rule applies here. For the plural subject, the verb will be plural, that is without s. No s to be added to the verb. Here again. Now here you have actually two verbs. One verb is do, the other one is sing. Now when we analyze both the verbs, we can see that do or don't become the auxiliary verbs or the helping verbs, and sing is the main action verb. Whatever changes we are going to make in negative statements, we will make changes to the auxiliary verb or the helping verb and not this. I don't sing, you don't sing, we don't sing, and they don't sing. This was regarding the plural ones. Now in singular, the rule again says that verb should have s or es. If I have to make any changes as per the subject, then I will make changes in the auxiliary verb and not in the main verb. Like I will not add s or es in the action word. I will not make sings for negative one, but I will add that s or es in the auxiliary verb and make it does not or doesn't. Let's see how the sentence will be formed. He doesn't sing. Now sing will be kept in its base form only. Unlike here, unlike in the positive sentence, we added s to the action verb. But when you have an auxiliary verb with it, we will not touch the action verb at all. It will always remain in the base form. No s to be added to the sing. She does not sing. It does not sing. Ravi does not sing. Meera does not sing. Raman does not sing, and so on. Let's go to the interrogatives. What are interrogatives? Forming questions. Correct. Now when we are forming questions, at that time the auxiliary verb do or does will come at the beginning of the sentence, depending on plural or singular subjects. Do, I, and then a verb. Now here, when you are adding a verb, again the same concept which we applied for negative will also apply here. Because we have an auxiliary verb, we will keep the action word in its base form. We will not add s or es to the main action verb. So let's write, do I sing? Now let's take the same one and add a question mark to it, because it is interrogative. Do not forget the question mark here. Now I can also make a negative. Let's try to make negative sentence now. Don't you sing? Do we sing? Don't they sing? So for affirmative interrogative we'll use do, while for negative interrogative we will use don't. Now this was the case with plural subjects. Let's see what happens to the singular subjects. For singular subjects we will add the auxiliary verb does or doesn't. Again, does comes in affirmative interrogative sentences and doesn't will come for negative interrogative sentences. Let's start. Does he, what will come here? Sing or sings? Sing. No s, because we have already added s to the auxiliary verb. So we will not change the main verb. The main verb will remain as it is, sing. And of course a question mark. Not to forget the question mark, correct. So does he sing? Does she sing? Doesn't it sing? And doesn't Meera sing? Doesn't Ravi sing? Doesn't Raman sing? So that's how you can make n number of questions using simple present tense. Now this was the case with the auxiliary verbs do or does. What about other question words like when, which, how, where, why, etc.? In that case, the question word will come at the beginning. Look here, if you have a question word like this, these are only a few I have noted down, there are many, but if you have a question word like this, then you will start the word first and then you move on to the auxiliary verb, do, you, work. Now this interrogative form has come here as it is. You just have to add that question word at the beginning of the sentence. Like, do you work or does she work? The same concept of the interrogative, but the beginning will be with the new question word. Now, after seeing the format of simple present tense, let's see how and where to use simple present. Look at some of the rules that I have written for you here. The first rule says that simple present tense should be used for a regular habit or a regular action that is happening every day, like a general habit. Now, when we are talking about a regular action or a habit, in such sentences we would find some hint words. Like here, we have found hint word like every Monday, very often. Now, these hint words will tell us how frequently that action is happening. So, if you have such words present in the sentence, then it is definitely simple present tense. For your knowledge, I have written a few words here. I'll just read them out. These words can also be present in the sentences like usually, generally, occasionally, rarely, never, sometimes, ever, on weekends, once in a month, once in a week, once in a year, etc. So if you have any time reference in the sentence, then you can know which tense has been used. Come to the next rule. To express facts which are true for a long time. So if you are expressing something which is almost permanent, then you use this tense. For example, Jill has 2 sisters. So Jill has here becomes the verb. George is a lawyer. Now here the auxiliary verb is acting as a main verb. The third use of simple present tense is to state universal or general truth or universal facts which we cannot change. Nobody can change them. Like here, water boils at 100 degrees. Now this is a universal fact. But if you look at the verb here, the verb is in the present tense, boils. Man is mortal. Again, look at the verb here. It is in present tense. The fourth use is for planned future actions. If you have already planned at some point of time in future, you're going to perform a particular action, then you use this tense. Again, let's see the examples. Dad retires next year. Now, next year refers to an action in future, but it is a planned action. And if you look at the verb, it is in the present form, the V1 form with S. We leave for Mumbai next Monday. Again, a future action planned, but here again we have used the verb in the present form. Okay, let's move ahead now. For quotes with the verb say, whenever you have quotes in direct speech and it starts with says, after that this quote or the direct words will always be in simple present tense. Look at the verb here, do. That is simple present tense. In running commentaries on sports, for example, Raina hits. Hits, look at the verb here, Johnson for a 6. In exclamatory sentences beginning with here or there, if you have exclamatory sentences, those which end with an exclamation like this. If such a sentence starts with here or there, then your verb will always be in the simple present tense. Look here, there goes the devil, here comes the hero. The next one is in time clauses and conditional clauses. Now, a clause is a part of a sentence, right? That itself can make a meaningful sentence again. Time clauses are those clauses which tell us about an action happening at a particular time, and they generally start with the word when. when the sun rises. Okay, so now this part becomes our time clause here in the sentence. The sun rises is a simple present tense. Now what are conditional clauses? Conditional clauses are those clauses which give us a condition, and generally they start with if. Like, if this happens, then what will be the result? So in that sentence we have a condition and we have a result. So conditional clause here, I can pick out, this is the conditional clause in the sentence, if you see him. Now in this case I have to use simple present tense because it's a conditional clause. I may use, now if we move to conditional clauses, there are other possibilities also, but right now we will stick to only where simple present tense is used. So in this case, if you see him, look at the verb here, see him, and give him this book. Now if you look, both the verbs are in present tense. The last of the uses of simple present tense is in news headlines. Whenever we see headlines, they are always short and concise. PM arrives in Jammu for election rally. If you look at the verb here, it is in the present tense. And here we finish with all the uses of simple present tense. So in today's video, we saw what are simple present tenses, what is the format of simple present tense, where to use, when to use, and how not to be used. What golden rule to remember when we are making simple present tense. That's all about simple present tense. In the next video, we are going to solve an exercise of BBC Compactor book of class 8. Till then, take very good care of yourself. Be happy, stay safe. Thank you very much.